going down this weekend. The UFC heads to London for UFC Fight Night, Edwards versus Brady, and what I think is going to be a fantastic card from top to bottom. And yes, we have a very intriguing main event between two of the best guys in the welterweight division, super high level matchup between Edwards and Brady. And then in the co-main, we have the return of one of my favorite light heavyweights of all time in Jan Blachowicz versus the up-and-coming, streaking, on-fire Carlos Ulberg, who I've been saying from the very beginning, before he even got to the UFC, this guy is going to be a serious problem. I have not picked against him since he's been in the UFC. Does that change this time around? So stick around and find out. But either way, how do you know that this is going to be a good card, Jake? Well, I'm guessing, number one, but two, when I go through and I do my tape study, I do my breakdowns, and I'm jotting notes down, and I'm trying to figure some things out and who I'm going to pick, I just see the matchmaking here by the UFC, and I see a lot of these fights are very, very competitive. We have some interesting style clashes, and we do have a lot of former Cage Warrior guys on this card as well. So I think we are in for some high-level fights. We are in for some competitive fights. Super excited to break this one down, especially the co-main and main event. I'm going to be yapping in those quite a bit, so I will have time codes down below. But let's hop into this, starting with the very first fight of the evening between Kutateladze and Fernandes. This is I think, a very easy fight for Guram, right? As long as we see the Guram that we know, the guy that comes in very, very clean on the feet, right? First of all, when it comes to Guram Kutateladze, I think that he is one of the better strikers in the lightweight division. I think he is someone that has world-class talent. I'm not saying that he's a champion or anything like that, but I believe that if you look at his overall skill set and go skill for skill, tell me what Guram can't do. Tell me what he can't do, right? I think his grappling's pretty decent. I know he trains with Khamzat Chimaev, right? He's got good training partners. He's got outstanding striking. Muay Thai technique on the feet is terrific. He can do everything, right? He's got solid boxing. His kicks are devastating, and his speed on the feet and his high guard defense, I like a lot of what we have seen from Guram since he's been in the UFC. Now, we haven't seen him necessarily live up to his potential. Came in with a lot of hype, lost a decision to Mateusz Gamrot. Okay, so you lost to a chaotic-paced wrestler. Big deal, big whoop, who cares? Goes out there and loses a split decision to Damir Ismagulov, who I think was one of the dark horses in the division at the time. Very tricky on the feet as well. Goes out there and gets finished by Elvis Brenner. That was the one that bothered me a little bit. I thought Guram could have absolutely won that fight because he's a technical guy, man. He's super, super talented. And then he goes out there and takes on Jordan Vucenic, who is also on this card, who I think the world of. I've been a huge fan of Jordan Vucenic. I was waiting for him to finally get to the UFC, and it was on short notice. But early on, Guram was getting banged up, man. He was getting banged up by Vucenic, but I wasn't surprised one bit. People were out there acting like, I can't believe what Vucenic's doing. If you watch my channel, you would have known. Jordan Vucenic is a bad motherfucker, man. He's got outstanding Muay Thai, really good boxing, really, really, really good jiu-jitsu. So, I mean, that's a devastating opponent right there. So people that bash on Guram, I don't get it. I think Guram Kutateladze is a world-class fighter. He's someone that just needs to get it going. He needs to go in there, put everything together. I think we see it in this fight. I know I'm talking a lot about Guram here, but that's because I don't give a shit about Fernandes. I don't think he's UFC caliber whatsoever, right? And of course, he could make me eat his words or eat my words and whatever, but he comes out of, over from LFA, right? He's got that kind of long karate-like type of style, right? He springs in and out of range. He does have some solid timing. He's got good straight shots down the middle. But really his best shot from what I've seen, on the film out there is he throws the jab, kind of sets you up with the jab, and then he kind of level changes and springs in with a sneaky left hook right around the guard. You think the jab's coming, you over parry, which is something that I am concerned about because we have seen as good as Guram is on the feet, tends to parry and rely on the guard a little bit. So he's got to watch out for that. Outside of that shot, Kutateladze is better everywhere. He's better at everything compared to Fernandes in this fight. And then to go out there and lose to Mark Jacasey, I mean, that's telling me where you're at, in all honesty, right there. I never thought Jacasey was that good. I know he's a prospect at one point. Don't think he's that good. And then he goes out there and gets a finish over Muhammad Yahya. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with Fernandes so far. Maybe he shows me something that we really haven't seen thus far. I still believe in Kutateladze. I think that this is a very easy matchup for him. I imagine he's taking this very seriously, obviously. Guram is the more well-rounded fighter. His striking is faster, and I believe that the way he mixes things up is going to be too much for Fernandes in this fight. I'm going Guram Kutateladze. I'm going to say by finish here. I think he's able to get him out of there. I'm going to say in the second round. I mean, of course, this could go to a decision here, but I think Guram is just a more polished fighter. I think he's better everywhere. I think on the feet, outside of that little springy, kind of popping left hook that Fernandes throws, I think Guram's better. I think he bangs him up and picks him apart. Moving on, we have Callan Loughran and Nathan Fletcher. This is one of those fights that I'm telling you, I'm like, this is good matchmaking here by the UFC. We have two young guys that are on the rise in the UFC, right? Loughran has more experience since coming into the UFC, former Cage Warriors guy, kind of fought in some different promotions, comes to the UFC, and in a debut, you got Taylor Lapilus on the other side of you. That's hard opposition, right? Lapilus, I think, is a very, very solid fighter. Okay, so you take a loss there, UFC debut, whatever, goes out there and gets a finish, or wins by decision over Angel Pacheco. Okay, solid win. Angel Pacheco's a decent fighter, goes out there and loses a decision to Jake Hadley. That's where I have a little bit of a problem because Jake Hadley, one, he's no longer in the UFC. I get that, right? I believe he's in PFL now. But if you're losing to Jake Hadley and I look at Nathan Fletcher, I'm like, well, wouldn't that be a little bit of an issue, for you stylistically, right? Because these two have met before. And what we saw was some really, really, really good grappling scrambles. And I think that we see something very similar to what we saw when these guys first fought. Because what we've seen from Fletcher, I mean, he is a very, very, very good slick submission guy the minute the fight hits the floor, right? And we got to see that a little bit on the Ultimate Fighter. And we saw it in this matchup here against Zigomanis Ramaska, who is a dangerous and slick striker on the feet, but just didn't have the grappling, right? And I figured that was going to be an issue for Ramaska, and Fletcher exposed the hole in his game. So I think that this fight is rather straightforward. Loughran's going to want to keep this fight on the feet. He's got that big ass head. He's going to want to move forward. He's going to want to try to bang leg kicks, get in the pocket, and let the combinations go, because Loughran does have some thud if he is able to land clean. Now, can he stop the takedowns of Fletcher is going to be the question. And that is what I don't think he's going to be able to do. I think that Fletcher is going to kind of start a little bit slow. I think that they are going to enter into some of those grappling exchanges. And if you get tied up with Nathan Fletcher on the floor, man, at least early on in his UFC run here, the guys that he's going to run into in the bantamweight division, I think they're going to struggle with some of the grappling of Nathan Fletcher. And the only loss that we saw here, he got finished by Dominic Wooding, so outside of that, he has been really, really, really good, man. His grappling is good. His jiu-jitsu, I think, is excellent. I'm going to go Fletcher here, but I'm going to say decision. Maybe he finds a submission somewhere in there. I think on the feet, Loughran it's pretty clear that he is quite a bit better than Nathan Fletcher. So Fletcher, at all costs, he's going to have to try to get this fight to the floor. But even on the feet, I don't think it's too terribly outmatched. But his obviously where he wants this is to get to the grappling, take the fight to the floor, look to work for some of those submissions, can mix in some of the ground and pound. I think Fletcher wins a decision here, but I absolutely could see Loughran backing him up, stuffing the takedowns, and keeping him on the back foot and putting it on him. So like I said, good matchup here, but I am going to go Fletcher by decision. Moving on, we have a banger here. Surprised this isn't on the main card, man. We have Sean Bannon versus Puja Tomar. I really don't know who to pick for this one, and this is a weird fight here because, look, Shauna Bannon's not particularly good, right? She's someone that just doesn't look like a fighter to me, but then when you turn on the tape and you watch her fight, she's scrappy, right? She's scrappy, and from what we've seen, I mean, she's 6-1, prior to getting to the UFC, we've seen her, basically, she's a decision merchant. If she's going to win, it's by decision, but her one loss prior to getting to the UFC, Dakota Dicheva, right, over in the PFL, who is an outstanding fighter, and she was in there giving it all, man. I know she wasn't able to get the job done, but she was in there giving Dakota everything she could. And what we know about Shauna so far, it seems like she's someone that the UFC is going to try to push, right? She's kind of bouncy on the outside, throws some side kicks, springs in and out of range, darts in, kind of karate-esque, right? That's more of her style. But I don't know exactly where she is at in terms of the overall division. But the good news is there's not a ton of heat going on in women's MMA right now. So I don't think that she has to be super polished and super technical at this point in time, right? She does have room to grow. She's 31 years of age and she still has time. And she's going in there against Tomar, who India's just sitting back saying, please, can we get somebody into the UFC who can get a win? Please, Jubilee can't get it done. Can we please get someone in there? And Tomar is a solid fighter. She spent some time over in one where things just didn't look particularly good. She was getting banged up over in one championship, and ever since, she's on the local pro scene, and now she gets called into the UFC. She wins by split decision against Amanda here, and I'm just like, okay, she kind of picks and pokes on the outside. She's got some speedy leg kicks, mixes things up well, kind of, just bounces around on the outside. But I think she's just going to get outpointed in this matchup. I think that Shauna Bannon is going to win this fight by decision. I just don't see, I haven't seen enough from Tomar. I know she was doing, some Muay Thai as well, and she kind of has that Muay Thai style, fires off some good leg kicks. I just think that the activity, the, side kicks from the outside, blitzing in and out of range from Bannon, I think it's going to be a little bit too much, and that is going to give her the advantage on the judges' scorecards. And we've seen a little bit of grappling from her, especially in the Dakota fight from Shauna, so I don't know that Tomar comes into this and mixes in the grappling, and even if she does, I don't think she really has an advantage there. So I think Shauna is just a little bit better everywhere. I think she's going to be more active. That's why I give her the edge, but either way, terrible fight all around, honestly. Moving on. We have Andre Pulyaev versus CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan, who it's always a treat in my eyes whenever we get to watch a Christian Leroy Duncan fight. I think that inside of the middleweight division, in terms of guys on the rise, I think CLD is one of the more intriguing fight styles to watch. He's really, really smooth. He's got good distance management, really, really solid kicking game, good sneaky hands. I like everything about CLD. Now, since coming into the UFC and doing his thing, right, gets to win or loses to Armin Petrosian, right? He comes in, gets the win here over Dusko, goes out there, loses to Armin Petrosian. That's where I was a little concerned because I know Petrosian is a solid kickboxer, but we've seen kind of how he's basically found his way out of the UFC at this point. Then he goes on a two-fight skid, or two-fight winning streak, beats Dennis Tululin here, goes out there, finishes Claudio Ribeiro. So CLD, man, he's got some pop in his hands. He's speedy, and he will throw shots that you just don't see coming, and he'll knock your ass out. And that's what I love about Leroy Duncan is while he's fast and twitchy on the feet, he will set you up and get you out of there. And he's coming off of a loss 7 months ago to RoboCop, to Gregory Rodriguez, who I know just lost to Jared Cannonier. But Gregory is a unit, man. He is a big, strong, physical guy who implemented the grappling against CLD. Now, if you said no takedowns allowed, I think CLD could pick him apart and find his way to win a decision, or I don't know about a finish because it was just the way the fight played out. But I think CLD is a better striker than Gregory, right? It's just the physicality of RoboCop that gave him some issues, and RoboCop does have outstanding submissions in his back pocket. So a very different matchup here compared to Andre Pulyaev, who is coming off of the Contender Series with a nice solid win over Liam Anderson, right? And I like what we've seen from Andre even on the regional scene. He has got some serious power in his hands. He's got some slick submissions on the ground, has decent grappling. And I honestly think if Andre's going to win this fight, I think he has to mix in the grappling. He's too simple on the feet where, yes, basics win. Yes, he does have pretty solid fundamentals, but he's too predictable, right? Because CLD is one of those guys that if you're too basic and all you do is come into the fight, looking to kickbox, there's not many guys that are going to beat him in this division, in my opinion. I think he's too fast. I think he's speedy. Now, the good news for Andre here is he's 6'4" and has a 78.5-inch reach compared to Duncan's 79, and Duncan is 6'2", so he can kind of match a little bit of the measurables when it comes to CLD, not allow him to just sit and poke on the outside, because that's what's given guys some issues to where eventually CLD can set you up. But I do believe that the power of Andre could be an issue for CLD, but I don't think that he's able to find a clean shot in this matchup. I'm going to go Christian Leroy Duncan by finish here. I think in the third round, he is able to frustrate Andre. He's able to frustrate him with speed, distance management, range management, attack all aspects, beat up the lead leg, throw those front kicks up the middle, and just really wear on Andre to set him up, frustrate him, get him moving forward, trying to land something big when he's down on the scorecards, and Duncan just slides out of range and is able to catch him with something. And we've seen that Duncan has improved his overall skill set, so maybe he looks to implement some of the grappling grappling of his own to wear on Andre a little bit, take away some of that big power that he has as well. I think CLD is cleaner. I think he's more technical, and I like the way that he manages things on the feet. I'm going CLD by a late finish in the third round. Moving on, we have Marcin Tybura versus Mick Parkin. This was a fight that, you guys know how I like to say, when I saw a fight get announced, I winced. I went, that's what happened when they booked Bobby Green versus Mauricio Rufy. I was like, why you got to do that to Bobby Green, man? Not the same kind of effect on this fight, obviously, right? Because Mauricio Rufy is a very, very dangerous prospect that has crazy power and all those things, and Green's getting older, but I kind of feel this way whenever this fight was booked because I really, really like Mick Parkin, right? And the elephant in the room, he trains with Tom Aspinall. We think he has a decent ground game, even though we haven't gotten to see a huge sample size of it thus far. He's a different kind of heavyweight, right? A lot of heavyweights they're just kind of these big guys that just mosey forward. They snack on a pack of potato chips over in the corner, wait for you to pressure them, and then they can land a big shot, right? So it's a lazy style of fighting on the back end of the heavyweight division. When you start to get into the meat and potatoes of the division and move up the ranks, that's where we see some of the actual grappling. We see some of the actual, technical skill sets that the division has to offer. And I do believe that Mick has a ranked skill set per se, right? I think he's good on the feet. He does obviously have power. I mean, he's a 260-some pound guy, so if he hits you clean, of course he can put anybody out. But what we've seen from him so far is a guy that comes on the Contender Series, gets a submission win, beats Jamal Pogues by decision. That's a solid opponent, right? Jamal Pogues has some decent boxing, right? He could be a tricky guy on the feet. Goes out there, wins a decision over Machado, wins a decision over Mo Usman, which I don't think Mo Usman is good at all. I think that his wrestling is decent, his striking's atrocious. So to not be able to finish him, and then you go out there and you finish Lucas Brzeski, who I don't think is very good. I'm not super impressed with what we've seen from Mick Parkin. Like I said, I think that he has a good skill set. I think that he, picks and pokes on the feet. He's measured. He's patient. He is different than a lot of the other heavyweights. I winced because I think it's too much too soon. Marcin Tybura is one of those guys who, you see he's almost 40s, 26-9, and you just are so quick to write off Tybura. I think Tybura takes his ass down and beats him up. That's what I honestly think about this fight, because with Tybura over this stretch here, goes out there, wins a decision over Ivanov, goes out there and loses to Tom Aspinall, Tommy Aspinall, I know that him and Mick train together. Aspinall's a different breed, man. Just because you train with somebody doesn't mean you're them, right? Obviously, you can pick up on some of the things that they do and implement that into your game. He ain't Aspinall, right? That's the point. Goes out there, goes up against Tai Tuivasa, is able to take him down, find a submission. The deal with Tybura in a lot of his fights is even if he does, it looks awful early. There's a good chance that Mick Parkin's beating him up, battering him around, drops him, and it looks like the fight could be over. Tybura will weather the storm, go back to his stool, check out his ugly ass haircut, and then come out there and be like, all right, I need to grapple. Let me push you up against the fence. Let me drag you down and get on top to where I can start to look for submissions. But more importantly, these dangerous elbows that we have seen from Tybura, right? He loses to Spivak by armbar. Okay, Spivak's pretty good on the ground. Goes out there and gets this nasty finish over Renato Diniz. That is really where you got to see, if you're a young prospect, you can't overlook Marcin Tybura, because if he takes you down, starts looking for ground and pound, starts mixing in, the submission threat, it changes things up quite a bit. Now, having said all of this, I believe that the patience of Mick Parkin could work in his favor, and I do think that there is a chance that he could stick and move, pick and poke at Tybura, maybe find a finish, even though we haven't seen too many of them since he's been in the UFC. I just think it's too much too soon. I think it's too much too soon, and I think Marcin Tybura is a prospect killer, man. I think that he is a serious problem, and I could absolutely see Tybura going out there and, getting a ground and pound finish with elbows. And I'm going to say in the second round, I think the first round is going to be patient from Mick. I think he picks and pokes at him, and then Tybura eventually is able to push him up against the fence, drag him down, threaten with submissions, get to a dominant position, and start to let some good ground and pound go. I think Tybura teaches the new kid on the block a little bit of a lesson. But I think Mick Parkin's going to be very good. I think that he's a future guy in the division. This is a little bit too much too soon, in my opinion. You're not finishing those other guys. I don't think he's finishing Tybura. Moving on, We have Kavanagh versus Felipe dos Santos. This is a fun matchup in the flyweight division, right? We kind of have the Dollar General version of Charles Oliveira and Dos Santos, who does train over at Shoot to Box, right? He's got the Charlie Olive's hair. He's got the Muay Thai style, big leg kicks, forward pressure, high guard. Likes to get in your face because he knows, what are you going to do? Take me down? I have outstanding submissions. And that's kind of what we've seen in the style of Felipe dos Santos, right? Comes over into the UFC, makes his debut on short notice, and this kind of got him a lot of hype because you go in there against a guy like Manel Kape and put up a really solid fight against him. That is going to get you some pop, right? No question there. It was a good performance, even though he lost. Goes out there and beats Victor Altamirano by decision. I just don't think Victor Altamirano's good at all, right? I know that there's some decent things about him. He's got kind of that funky karate style. Where's the threat with Altamirano, really, right? Especially when it comes to the striking. So, edges it out with a split decision there. Then goes out there and gets kind of, poked around and punked around by Andre Lima, right? So, and Andre Lima is a very, very good fighter. So I don't take too much of that into account here per se, right? But it's more of what Kavanagh does. I mean, this guy is absolutely spectacular, in my opinion. Coming over from Cage Warriors, comes into the UFC, puts everyone on notice right away on the Contender Series with that nasty left hook KO over Ho. Comes in, in his UFC debut, very first fight, which I always say this. I give guys a little bit of a pass in that UFC debut. Not the Contender Series, their very first UFC fight where you're wearing the Venom fight kits. You're making the UFC walk for the first time, all the different bells and whistles that go into that, I do think play a big factor in a debut. So he goes out there against Jose Ocho, who I think is a very solid fighter. I think that was a tough UFC debut opponent there, right? So I think Kavanagh goes out there in his debut, wins a decision. I'm going Kavanagh here by decision. Maybe he finds a finish in this fight, because what I like about Kavanagh, he's got a solid ground game, got good submissions in his back pocket, but he prefers to move forward, get to the boxing. He's got really, really good power in his hands. And when he starts letting his hands fly, starts letting the combinations rip, this dude can put anybody out in this division. I have no doubt about that. The issue I have in terms of finish is Dos Santos is durable. He has shown us that. He's durable. He does have a dangerous guard when it gets to the ground. He has some slick jiu-jitsu. So I don't know that we're going to see Kavanagh try to play, the grappling game too much there. So I think on the feet, he's able to land some good shots, able to push Santos up against the fence, back off the pressure whenever Dos Santos is crashing forward with the power that Kavanagh has. I think that he will negate some of that pressure from Santos. I like the prospect in Kavanagh, man. I think this dude is really, really, really good. Sure, could Felipe Santos come in there? He has a little bit of more UFC experience. He's only 24. He's still young, right? Trains over at Shoot to Box. I just don't think he's that good. I know he had a good showing against Manel Kape. He has some slick submissions. He moves forward. He is fun to watch, and he does put on some solid performances. I just think Kavanagh is a world-class flyweight, to where I think Felipe is a solid flyweight, to where Kavanagh is world-class and a guy that is eventually going to be challenging for a title. That's what it comes down to. Kavanagh's a better fighter. I'm picking him by decision. I could see a finish, but I feel like it might be a decision. Moving on, we have Jai Herbert versus Chris Padilla. This, to me, is a very straightforward fight here. Look, Jai Herbert, he's someone that he gets ripped on a lot, right? And a lot of it, he goes out there against Ilia Topuria, who obviously now, this hasn't aged so poorly. Goes out there and gets folded like a lawn chair to the canvas. A devastating knockout when he got, in the phone booth. Ilia backed him up against the fence, had the head bobbing, and bang, landed that nasty right hand over the top that took his soul. Dropped him, folded him. I mean, it was a gruesome type of KO. One of those where you're just like, that's going to be career changing. And then he comes back and wins a decision over a solid opponent in Kyle Nelson. And I'm going, okay, this guy's not done yet, right? And then he goes, majority decision here against Ludovic Klein. Ludovic Klein's a very game opponent. Goes out there and loses a decision to Faraz Ziam, who we've seen. Ziam is world-class in this division, in my opinion. I mean, he's solving the grappling. He's getting better and better. We saw that against Mike Davis. He's a rangy guy on the feet. He's a very good kickboxer. So, okay, no harm, no foul. And then he goes out there and beats Rolando Bedoya, and he put it on him, right? And what I liked about this performance from Herbert was he was very active, because with Jai, not only he got KO'd by Ilya, he's put Ilya in more danger than anybody else since Ilya's been in the UFC. When Ilya was loading up with that right hand, he timed a perfect lead leg snappy roundhouse, or lead leg kick, right off the lead leg, and was able to drop Ilya Topuria and almost got him out of there, right? So Jai Herbert, he's excellent on the feet. He's a tall guy for the weight class at 6'1". He's got a lean, lanky frame, and he doesn't have a ton of sting in his hands. He's very technical on the feet. I like watching him fight, but I think he's going to struggle a little bit in this matchup. And I think that the issue for me with Jai in this fight is, while I think that he is the better striker, I don't think that he is leaps and bounds better than Chris Padilla. I think he's more technical. I think he's more smooth, and I think he's faster. But he doesn't have the sting in his hands. His kicks are really good, so maybe he throws up a kick and lands something there. But in terms of the boxing, yes, he's crisp, but I just don't know if it's enough, because with Chris Padilla, this is a guy that, he was on a tear before coming into the UFC, finishing guys, right? He's got serious power in his elbows. He's got terrific elbows, steps in, throws a really, really good elbow that will meet you right on the chin, and he has the wrestling and the grappling in his back pocket to mix in as well. So that's kind of the elephant in the room per se. I think Padilla comes into this, will mix in the grappling. If you're going out there and submitting James Yontop, that's going to get my attention, because I don't think Yontop, we saw, he's not UFC caliber. He, was in and out of the UFC very quickly. He fought some tough opposition. That guy is made of cement or something. He has one of the best chins we've ever seen in the UFC. So he goes out there and finishes them. Think of all the guys that Yontop's been in there with, like Mauricio Rufy, Slava Claus. None of them could get him out of there. I know it's the striking. Padilla subbed him, right? Then goes out there and gets a TKO stoppage over Rong Zhu. Look how that's aged, right? Rong Zhu is a very, very good fighter, right? So I like what we've seen from Padilla. I think he resorts to the grappling here, and I think that he is able to take down Jai Herbert and find a ground and pound finish. I think that on the feet, he is going to struggle a little bit, because Herbert is long, he's lean, he's quick, but he's eventually going to back him up against the fence, because Herbert does let you back him up a lot, right? And I know that he likes to stick and move and maintain his range, but he gets backed up to the fence a little bit too easily for my liking. And I know he trains with Leon Edwards, and those guys are very technical with the striking. And yes, Jai Herbert is a pretty well-rounded fighter, and he's good, up against the fence at getting underhooks, getting a whizzer, getting his back off, getting the tie, ripping off, getting back to space. Just don't know if it's enough. I think Chris Padilla's pressure, the way that he's going to move forward, the way that if he takes you down, he doesn't just hold you down, looks for active ground and pound, has a submission threat in his back pocket, I think it's a problem for Jai Herbert. Of course, if Jai can stuff the takedowns, keep this at range, he will absolutely outstrike Chris Padilla, in my opinion, right? So if Padilla wins, he has to mix in the grappling. I think he does. I think he finds a finish on the ground in the second round. Moving on, we have a very, very good matchup here between Nathaniel Wood and Morgan Charriere. This is one of those fights that I said to you, look, man, we have some good matchups on this card that I sit there and I go, I just don't know. I don't know, and this is one of those fights because I sit there and I tell myself, I'm like, look, recency bias is going to tell me Morgan Charriere, he's better, right? From what we've seen from him, he's been spectacular. Comes into the UFC, gets the finish in the debut, goes out there and loses a split decision to Chepe Mariscal. It's not a bad loss, right? Chepe is a very talented fighter. Goes out there and finishes Gabriel Miranda with that beautiful left hook. And I'm like, okay, right? So we've seen a lot from Morgan Charriere, and I think it's very important to note, you see the 20-10-1 record, and you go, this guy, man, he's 29 years old, 20-10, he must not be that good for a casual who doesn't know what they're, looking at here. They just look at that and they're like, I don't know, is this guy even good? Morgan Charriere is a very, very, very good fighter. He is complete. He's dangerous. He's got serious power in his hands. And when he gets into the pocket and starts to dirty box and let those good combinations go in close, he is a problem for a lot of guys in the featherweight division, especially towards the back end, right? When you get into the top of the rankings, a little bit of a different story. But he's a well-rounded fighter. He's got serious power in his hands, and he is hot right now. I know he lost to Chepe Mariscal, but how that's aged, man, I think that, I don't think that that's so bad. And then before that, all the finishes and then putting it together here against Gabriel Miranda, getting a finish. I like what I have seen from Mariscal, but on the other side, we know what we're getting in Nathaniel Wood. A very technical fighter, very complete fighter, wins a decision against Charles Rosa, beats Charles Jourdain, a lot of decision wins, right? Yes, the win over Andre Fili, goes out there, loses to Muhammad Naimov. Naimov's a very, very good fighter. Very complete, very fun to watch, very much improved on the feet as we saw in his last performance, and then goes out there and wins a decision over Daniel Pineda, right? So what we've seen from Nathaniel Wood, he can go out there and put on a display of beautiful MMA. Mix in the grappling, mix in the striking, get to the boxing, back you up against the fence, make you uncomfortable, level change, keep you guessing. He absolutely can do that. And I think that Nathaniel Wood has a very good shot at winning this fight. But I'm going to go with the hot hand here. I'm going to go with the guy that has the ability to finish the fight. And of course, Nathaniel Wood, maybe he could find a finish. Maybe he could outscore Morgan, take away the explosiveness, mix in the grappling. I don't think it happens. I'm going to go Morgan Charriere by decision here. Maybe he finds a KO. Maybe he mixes in a shot in close. If, Wood backs him up and gets a little too overzealous, I could see Morgan catching him with a left hook like we saw in his last fight maybe. But I don't know if he's able to get Nathaniel Wood out of there, right? Because Nathaniel Wood, the one loss here recently to Muhammad Naimov, Naimov's a good fighter, man. His striking is really, really sharp, and we've seen some good improvements from him. So while I think that Charriere has the finishing potential, I don't know if he's able to get Nathaniel Wood out of there. Nathaniel Wood's still almost 32 years of age. He's a solid, well-rounded fighter. I think that he may look to weaponize the experience, right? Try to mix everything together, keep Morgan guessing. But I think Morgan's ready for this. Big moment for him. I think he gets it done. I'm going to say by decision, but I could absolutely see a finish if Morgan were to win. Moving on. Can't wait for this one, man. We have Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan. Those of you that have been watching my channel since the very beginning have known that I have talked about this name, Jordan Vucenic, for a very, very long time. I believe that outside of some of the bigger names that we have in the UK right now, right, there's Leon Edwards, obviously Tommy Aspinall. They're trying to push Paddy Pimblett. We get all that. I believe in terms of a world-class skill set, in terms of it factor in the way that they fight, this is the guy. I believe that this is one of the best, if not the most complete mixed martial artist coming out of the UK right now in Jordan Vucenic. I said it. I believe Jordan Vucenic has all of the potential and all of the ability to get up close to a world title. I'm not saying he's going to be champion. He will be at the top of this division sooner rather than later. This guy has outstanding Muay Thai technique, outstanding boxing, really good eyes, very good on the outside, very good in the pocket, and, he's backed by outstanding submissions. He has very slick jiu-jitsu, very solid grappling overall. I mean, if you go on, it's Siam, I believe is how you pronounce it, Boxing's channel, they have tons of sparring footage, training footage of Jordan Vucenic, even on his own YouTube channel. When you see this guy hit the pads, you see him spar, his eyesight, his head movement, the way he slips and rips, the way he mixes things up on the feet. This guy, in my opinion, is a world-class striker for MMA. I like everything about Jordan Vucenic, and he comes into the UFC, makes his debut on short notice against Guram Kutateladze. Guram's an outstanding striker, a very, very good striker, and Vucenic had him in some serious danger early on, and then as the fight played out, we saw him kind of slow down a little bit, hence, obviously, the fight being there on short notice, a little bit of an issue. But if you're going toe-to-toe with a guy like Guram in your UFC debut, that on short notice, that tells me a lot about you, and which I already knew about Vucenic before, but he's been over there, Cage Warriors champion, comes over, he has slick submissions. You've seen that on his resume. He is a submission ace if the fight hits the floor, and he's going in there against Chris Duncan, who we all know what Duncan brings. He's got power. We saw that on the Contender Series. He has he's got this like granite type of style. He moves forward. He's a brute force. We saw him win the decision over Yunal Ashmouz. I thought that was impressive because I think Ashmouz is a solid fighter. He gets subbed by Manuel Torres, had some moments, goes out there and gets a submission win over Blachowicz. We just saw bad IQ by Oki, right? He's a talented guy on the feet. He's got some pop, but he just was a little bit lacking with the ground game, got overzealous, and then we saw Duncan take advantage of that. You're not going to have any of that against Jordan Vucenic. I think Jordan Vucenic finds a finish. I'm going to say by submission here, and I'm going to say third round. No, I'm going to say second. I'll go second round. I think Jordan Vucenic wins this fight regardless. Maybe it's by decision. Maybe it's a KO. I think that he hurts Chris Duncan. The fight hits the floor, and if Duncan does, because Vucenic is such a far superior striker in my opinion, if Duncan tries to entertain the grappling, good luck. I think Vucenic finds a submission. I think that he is able to get this one done. I am all in. I am all for Jordan Vucenic. I didn't think that he was going to be able on short notice to get through Kutateladze. Gained a ton of experience there. He is a world-class fighter in my opinion. Obviously, there are some gaps with the wrestling, especially in the lightweight division, in terms of the striking, submission threat. This dude's legit. Love everything about Jordan Vucenic. I think he is a star in the making coming out of the UK. I'm riding with Vucenic. I'm a huge fan. Moving on. We have Molly McCann versus Alexia Thainara. I mean, I really don't give a shit. I really don't care. This is a last-minute replacement here. Alexia stepping in here. I can't remember. It was Ennis or I don't even remember who the first opponent was. Bottom line, it was a layup for Molly McCann. That's what they were trying to do, was strategically pick an opponent for her to get a layup, because she's been hot and cold, right? She has a KO win, 2.5 years ago, loses to Erin Blanchfield by sub, loses, another fight here, goes out there, gets, the armbar finish over Diana, and then loses to Bruno Brazil. What I see from Alexia Thainara when I watch on the film, or when I turn on the film, wasn't super familiar, right? Trains over with Amanda Hebos. She has a slick ground game, right? She has good submissions, but more importantly, on the feet, she's aggressive. She moves forward. She has a wild style, right? And that's what we saw in the Contender Series against Rose. She's very dynamic on the feet. She has slick submissions, so she has no issue pressuring you. As you can see here, she can finish the fight. She has those submissions. So when she's pressuring and moving forward and throwing those leg kicks, because she's got some good leg kicks, she's got good speed, she's dynamic on the feet. She's not, what's there to be scared of with Molly McCann? Molly throws those big ooga booga shots, and of course, if that lands, that can hurt you and put you out. And yes, Meatball Molly is strong, and maybe she could have her way in the grappling. I doubt it. Even if she does take Alexia down, she's going to find herself in some bad positions. I think Alexia wins this fight by submission. I know it's a shorter notice opportunity here for Alexia, but I'm going to say, I'll say third round. I'll say third round submission. Maybe it goes to decision or whatever. Maybe Molly lands a shot. Of course, all that's possible. I don't think Molly's, I think she's okay. I think it's just kind of, someone that the UFC's tried to force down our throats a little bit. I don't think she's actually that big of a star. I don't think she's that good of a fighter, to be honest. I know she has power. She has a pretty decent skill set. I just think that Alexia is a more complete fighter. This is a big moment for her. She's hungry. She's got a very good camp behind her. I know Molly does as well. But I like what I've seen from Alexia. Dynamic on the feet, good submissions in her back pocket. I think that Molly is in trouble everywhere the fight goes. That's why my brain tells me Alexia gets it done. Moving on. Kevin Holland versus Gunnar Nelson. Man, I never thought we would be in a position with Kevin Holland since UFC, 279, where he had to step in, fight Khamzat Chimaev, got absolutely destroyed. But again, it's Khamzat Chimaev, it is what it is. Kevin Holland has just been one of those guys to where we started to get these Donald Cerrone vibes, right? He's just a guy that it feels like, he just wants to take every fight that he can, fight 20 times a year, doesn't matter where it is. If he wins, whatever, loses, whatever. That's how it feels with Kevin Holland. And I don't know that it gets much better moving forward, because Kevin Holland is a guy that I do believe, I don't know for sure, is getting taken care of by the UFC. Stepped in against Khamzat Chimaev, went on that tear at middleweight where he won 5 in a row in 1 year. We know all of that. And Kevin Holland's very dangerous on the feet. He's got a sniper right hand. He's rangy. He's difficult to hit. He's difficult to deal with on the feet. But he's got a problem on his hands here in Gunnar Nelson. And I know that Nelson, yes, it's been a while since we've seen him, almost 2 years, and he goes out there, subs Brian Barberena. And, on the rise of Gunnar Nelson, he's someone that I feel like it was just almost a wasted career to a degree. He's someone that's been around for so long, 36 years of age. I think he has a large influence on Conor McGregor's striking style. I remember back in the day, these guys would train together and you'd see them bouncing up and down, the floor, working on, timing and rhythm. And you saw that karate influence that Conor has in his game. A lot of that actually came from Gunnar Nelson, right? So Nelson is a very intelligent fighter, and specifically with the grappling. While he's he's got some trickiness on the feet, it's the grappling. He has very, very good takedown entries. He is able, once he pushes you up against the fence and gets his hands locked, you're getting dumped. He's taking you down, and not only when he takes you down are you in trouble, you're in serious trouble. He has outstanding submissions. He's a very, very high-level jiu-jitsu guy, and I know it says, we hear that Kevin Holland's a black belt under Travis Lutter, which it sounds great. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it inside the UFC, at least, right? And if you're going to match these two up in a grappling match, I think Nelson wins this all day long unless he gets caught in something in Holland's guard. Gunnar Nelson's far better when it comes to the grappling. In terms of the striking, yes, Holland is a little bit more, he's definitely more powerful. Yes, he's a little bit more pinpoint, which could be an issue. But he's going out there and he's losing a split decision to Leon Edwards back in the day. I know that's a younger Leon Edwards, but is Leon Edwards, is Kevin Holland beating Leon Edwards? In no way, shape, or form, right? And this was a close fight. Goes out there and loses to a prime Gilbert Burns at the time, right? So, not bad. Goes out there, beats Sato. It's been a while since we've seen a crazy performance from Gunnar Nelson. I know he beat Brian Barberena, but the bottom line is this. Kevin Holland loses a split decision to JDM, loses to MVP, wins against Mikhail Olszewczuk to where he was in some trouble, pulls off a submission. This disaster against Roman Dolidze, this disaster against Rainer de Ritter. Can't trust Kevin Holland, man. I can't trust him. If he could keep the fight on the feet, he absolutely could starch Gunnar Nelson and win the fight. Without question, sure, he could pull off a Hail Mary submission off of his back. Doubt it happens. Gunnar Nelson's too good on the ground. Kevin Holland does have a significant height and reach advantage, so it's going to be on Nelson to close the distance. But with that athletic karate style, I think he does. I think he's able to get a hold of Kevin Holland, and I think that he submits Kevin Holland. I know that Gunnar Nelson is not exactly Roman Dolidze. I know that he's definitely not Rainier de Ritter, but he does have good enough grappling. He does have a very, very good submission game, and he is athletic enough on the feet. I know he's getting up there in age and all these kinds of things. He's a smart fighter. He will pressure Kevin Holland, look to close down Kevin, because Kevin does not, outside of a straight right hand, what else is there to really worry about? I know he's kind of jumping around and bouncing around and talking a bunch of shit, but I think Kevin Holland's fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm tired of picking him and looking like an idiot. Fuck you, Kevin Holland. I hope you prove me wrong, but I got to go Gunnar Nelson here. Of course, this will probably, since I picked Gunnar Nelson, now Kevin Holland will win this fight, but from what I've seen from Kevin, doesn't seem like he's taking it seriously. Nelson, dangerous on the ground. I got Gunnar getting it done. Moving on. Co-main event of the evening between Jan Blachowicz and Carlos Ulberg. This is one of those fights that the moment it got announced, I've been watching endless film. I've been going back and forth, and I'm just so uncertain on who I'm picking, man. Even to this very minute, I know who I'm picking, but I'm still very uncertain, and I'm just questioning. Because Carlos Ulberg is someone that I've picked him to win every single time since he's been in the UFC. He's someone that before they got to the UFC, I was very, very excited to see what we were going to see from him. Fighting over in King of the Ring over in New Zealand. He trains at City Kickboxing with Adesanya. And we have seen some very good things from the City Kickboxing guys, right? Like Navajo Sterling. They all have a very similar style, right? They hip feint on the outside. They blast really good leg kicks. They have a very good jab. But they struggle when it comes to the overall boxing, which is something that I've started to notice with a lot of the City Kickboxing guys. I would say Kai Kara France probably has the better boxing out of those guys, because I know Volkanovski kind of trains with them, but he's got, he trains over, I believe that's freestyle, right? So he's technically not a CKB guy. So I would say Kara France probably has the edge there with the boxing. Ulberg's dangerous. He's powerful. He has a nasty jab. He's got very powerful leg kicks, good front kicks up the middle, very, very patient, quick, sharp left hook that can drop you and put you out. He's got a good laser beam right hand. Carlos Ulberg is a very high-level kickboxer. Without question, I've seen so many fights of him over in King of the Ring. He's dangerous, he's fast, and his only hiccup in his MMA career was when he came into the UFC against Kennedy and Nzechukwu. He was beating up on Kennedy and Nzechukwu, beating the shit out of him. And Kennedy was just shelling up, waiting, and Ulberg gassed out, and then Kennedy was able to get him out of there. Outside of that, Carlos Ulberg has been pretty much flawless. He fixed the cardio mistake, and since that, He has just been absolutely spectacular. Goes out there against Nikolai, devastates his lead leg, beating up the calf, gets him out of there with that left hook. The left hook against Ihor Potieria. Goes out there, actually shows us his evolved grappling skill set by getting a submission over Da Woon Jung. Goes out there and finishes a idiotic approach from Alonzo Menefield, who just bull rushed him and got absolutely slept, and then gets his biggest step up in competition to where we were going to find out what Carlos Ulberg was about, and takes on Volkan Oezdemir, to where I watched that and I go, I'm starting to get a little concerned, because I understand that Volkan Oezdemir is, he's kind of slow, right? He's got thunderous power in his hands. But to me, that was a perfect matchup for Carlos Ulberg to go out there and just show us everything he's got. And I know he won the fight. Believe me, I know he won the fight and I was still impressed. But it concerns me. Because if you're asking me about Volkan Oezdemir and Jan's better, man. Jan is better, in my opinion, than Volkan. He's a more well-rounded guy in terms of the striking, and when it comes to the grappling, we know what Jan is able to do. He has good submissions. He can mix things up, and I understand that Jan is 42 years of age. That's scary. He's been out for a significant amount of time. His last fight was the split decision loss to Alex Pereira over a year and a half ago. He's gotten shoulder surgery. There's a lot of reasons to not pick Jan, man. He's 42. He's coming off an injury. He's been inactive. Look at, what his resume has been recently. Wins a decision against Adesanya. Adesanya tried to move up and take the belt. We saw what Jan was able to do, mix things together really well. Goes out there, gets destroyed by Glover Teixeira, and I was like, is this the end of Blachowicz? What a sad thing that would be. Goes out there and beats Alexander Rakic. Now, there was a leg injury, right? We get that. And then the split decision draw against Magomed Ankalaev. I thought Ankalaev won this fight, right? However, the damage that he inflicted on the legs of Magomed Ankalaev was definitely something that was very, very impressive. And then the split decision loss to Alex Pereira, where he's like, I have to test my striking. Legendary Polish power. I have to test my striking. And then within 5 seconds of the fight, he shot for a takedown, which I had a feeling was coming. Bottom line, what's Carlos Ulberg going to do to Jan Blachowicz? Was he going to leg kick him? Nope. Jan Blachowicz will shut that down. He'll check the kicks very well. What's Ulberg going to beat him up with a jab the whole fight? Maybe. Speed around on the outside, land a jab, land a right hand, kind of snipe at him, utilize his speed? Maybe. Was he going to catch him with a left hook? Jan Blachowicz just went 15 minutes with Alex Pereira, who has the best left hook that we've ever seen in MMA, and didn't get starched by it or finished by it, right? Barely got hit by it. Timed it, entered into some nice double leg takedowns, took him down, controlled him. Carlos Ulberg, yes, he's hitting his prime. He's 34 years of age. He's on a hot streak. He wants to get one back for Adesanya. He's got a good team. They're familiar with preparing for Jan Blachowicz. Jan's 42. He's been out for a while. Jan Blachowicz wins this fight. I think Jan Blachowicz wins this fight by decision. I think that he is the better overall mixed martial artist. I know that Carlos Ulberg has improved overall. He has better grappling than when he came into the UFC. He is very, very fast. He is significantly faster than Jan Blachowicz. But what is he going to do, man? If he doesn't land that left hook, what's he going to do? Run for 15 minutes? You saw how the Volkan Oezdemir fight played out. If Jan is not washed, and we see even the Jan that fought up against Alex Pereira, I think he wins. He's going to shut down the kicking game of Ulberg. Ulberg does not deal well with leg kicks. Even go back to the kickboxing days. I think it was Young on the regional scene. Look at what happens with Carlos Ulberg, man. He gets his legs battered, right? And I think that he'll be prepared for that coming in. But even if you are prepared, Jan still has a way of getting to guys. He's got sledgehammers in his hands, dude. Legendary Polish power. I mean, if Jan Blachowicz lands on the chin of Ulberg, he's knocking him out. Yeah, I know he got tired against Kennedy and Zechku, and that was kind of a little bit of a fluke to a degree, right? I feel like that's fair to say. If they run that back, I think Ulberg wins, but still he lost. He got finished. You get hit by Jan Blachowicz, he's getting knocked out, man. He's getting knocked out. He keeps his hands low, and I know he's got good speed. It's a huge step up in competition. The Oezdemir fight was a big step up in competition. He didn't show out to me in that matchup. Jan Blachowicz is going to beat up his legs, check leg kicks, defend very well, and I know that Jan Blachowicz is not the fastest guy, but I have always said Jan could be 50, and the way that he fights with that kind of plotty, man, he kind of just licks his tongue and then just slowly marches forward and kind of like this, it translates well to slowing down at an older age. He's not some super explosive guy that relies on a bunch of footwork, in and out movement or anything like that. Jan Blachowicz, I think, wins this fight. I think that he will look to close the distance. And remember, when Jan goes, it is kind of fast, right? I know it's not lightning speed. Whenever he blitzes in and throws those shots, he loves to end with those, those kicks to the body. We saw that against Dominic Reyes, to where he will leave a footprint across your midsection, man. Jan Blachowicz is different. He's different. I've said that for a very, very long time. I thought he lost to Ankalaev, but the way that he was able to attack Ankalaev, and I know he got took it down by Magomed, that's the champion right now. That's the only guy that's went out at 205 and beaten Alex Pineda, right? So Ankalaev is world class. I'd said that for a long time, that Ankalaev was world class. So to go out there and lose that, whatever. I know it was a draw. Jan Blachowicz is the better overall fighter in my opinion. The big question for this is Jan washed or not? If he's not washed, I think he wins this fight. But either way, the speed of Carlos Ulberg is going to be an issue. So if Jan has an answer, he backs him up, closes him down, extends the combinations, attacks the body, beats up the legs of Ulberg, makes him a stationary target to where he can let the boxing go, I could see Jan Blachowicz landing a KO. Of course, I could see Ulberg's speed being an issue, dotting him up, winning a decision, or catching him with a check hook or something like that. I don't think that it happens, man. I think Jan Blachowicz is a very intelligent fighter. He's very game. I think that he is the better grappler. He also has good submissions as well. I think Jan Blachowicz is not done yet. I think he wins this fight and moves on to a potential title fight, eliminator, or some other big matchup. I think Jan still has a couple fights left in him. I'm hoping. I like Carlos Ulberg a lot, man. And if he wins, I'll be happy for him. But I don't think Jan is done yet. I think he still has some gas left in the tank. I'm going Jan Blachowicz by decision. Main event time. We have Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady. What's Tapology? Oh, the community leaning towards Leon Edwards in this one. Okay, interesting. So the elephant in the room with this fight, we'll get it out of the way right away. Okay, first, this is a high-level matchup. This is an outstanding matchup here that the UFC has put together. It was supposed to be Leon versus JDM. Della Maddalena gets the call. They say, look, Shavkat's out. He's injured. We need you to step in and take on Belal Muhammad at UFC 315 in the main event. JDM takes it. We have a fun matchup going down in Canada there. Now, enter Sean Brady. Completely different opponent, completely different challenge, to where I said that if the UFC ever gives Leon Edwards Sean Brady after the Belal fight, it almost feels like, fuck you, Leon. Like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm reaching. That's just kind of what it feels like. Because the elephant in the room is this. Not only is this a high-level fight, it's almost like you go like this with your eyes and you open them and you're like, Leon versus Belal, UFC 304? Like, that's kind of the vibe you get with this fight. Now, I do want to point out Sean Brady is not Belal. What Belal brings to the table is very different than Sean Brady. He brings much cleaner striking, a better pace, better overall wrestling, and Belal just has this relentless style. That's what we've seen from him, and we've seen that his boxing is very much improved, and he was a problem for Leon Edwards. The way he moved forward, mixed in the boxing, chained the wrestling together, picked him up, dumped him on his damn head on that bald spot right off the canvas. We saw the evolution in Belal, man. He is getting better and better and better. Sean Brady is very similar to Belal, but not the same. Doesn't have as good of wrestling, doesn't have that chaotic pace, does not have as good of boxing as Belal. But we trade all of that for world-class submission ability. I believe that Sean Brady has about as high-level jiu-jitsu as you can find in terms of an MMA fighter at present, in my opinion. I think the absolute world of Sean Brady when it comes to the submissions. Now, what I do like that we've seen from Sean Brady, goes out there, submits Jake Matthews. Okay, Matthews is a little hot and cold, coming off of a win, though. So decent win, right? Goes out there, wins a decision over Michael Chiesa. He gets finished by Belal, right? And we saw that in that fight. We figured the grappling was going to kind of cancel out. Belal put the heat on him, backed him up, and just got him out of there. Very, very good performance by Belal. And look how that's aged, right? That's the current champion, a guy who I think really no one can beat in the division in Belal, right? So not a bad loss there by Brady. And of course, getting finished, not a particularly great look. Goes out there and subs Kelvin Gastelum. To go out there and sub Kelvin Gastelum, I think that's impressive. I know Gastelum can't figure out what the hell weight class he's in, but Kelvin Gastelum's a tough guy to get out of there, right? So that's an impressive win. Then goes out there and puts it on Gilbert Burns. And I know Gilbert Burns is probably a little over the hill at this point. He's got really, really good submissions, good power in his hands. And we saw from Sean Brady in this fight that if he wants to push you up against the fence and work for takedowns, he will get them. And not only that, he was not afraid to entertain the grappling with Gilbert Burns, who is a high-level jiu-jitsu player. but he also completely outstruck Gilbert Burns, put the volume on him, and showed us this new evolution in the style of the striking of Sean Brady. And he's over there at Renzo Gracie Philly training with Joe Pyfer and getting some really, really good work in there with some of those guys. They got a lot of good guys out there, man. And again, Paul Felder has said time and time again that Sean Brady is one of the strongest guys when it comes to the grappling. You feel this guy's squeeze in his grappling strength, and it is next level. And you see it in the grappling matches. You saw when Brady was grappling with Craig Jones. This guy is an outstanding grappler, but it's MMA. And on the other side, we have Leon Edwards. Goes out there, gets his head spun around in the 5th round by Nate Diaz for one of the most iconic pictures of all time. Gets that head slap, left hand down the pipe, and Nate just points at him and says, fuck the finish, man. I just want the cold ass pick. That's what I love. Nate Diaz, man, goes out there, spins Leon Edwards' head around. Leon goes out there, pulls off, the crazy come from behind KO. You don't let him bully you, son. You got to pull it out the fire. Goes out there, lands a beautiful head kick, knocks out Kamaru Usman, wins against Usman by decision. Goes out there, should have finished Colby Covington, didn't even do that. Goes out there and gets absolutely dominated by Bilal Muhammad. Still landed some good elbows late and caused some nice damage. This is going to come down to a very simple equation here. If Sean Brady cannot get Leon Edwards down, he's in trouble because Leon Edwards is the more polished, well-rounded striker on the feet. He is I think, a very, very high-level striker. Very, very good kickboxing, outstanding timing, can switch stances, attack the lead leg very, very well. Good front kicks up the middle. You got to watch out for that high kick. That is Leon's best weapon. Sniper left hand down the middle, mixes in the Muay Thai really well. Good knees, good elbows. Leon is a complete fighter with a very improved ground game. And one of the things that Leon does a very, very good job of that he doesn't always get the credit he deserves. If you back him up against the fence and you shoot for a takedown and he has his back up against the fence, he does a tremendous job at stopping takedowns. We saw that against Kamaru Usman. We saw how he fights the hands, gets to space, creates separation, and then puts it on you and gets in your face and can cause some issues. This is giving me shades of Bilal versus Leon. I know Bilal he's better than Sean Brady. He's got better striking, the wrestling, the pace. That is all on the side of Bilal. So it's not the same matchup. But what we're trading is a little bit less striking for Sean Brady compared to Bilal. A little bit less striking, a little bit less grappling while still being very strong, but better submissions and better jiu-jitsu than Bilal. That's what we're looking at here. A similar style of fighter. While they're different, it's a similar style of matchup. I think Sean Brady wins this fight, and I don't know if he finds a submission. It's going to be a 5-round fight here, I think. Maybe Brady finds a submission. Maybe Leon is able to catch him with a head kick or something. I think we are looking at a 5-round competitive fight to where Leon does have some moments. I call him backfoot Leon now because he's a guy that even against Colby Covington, he should have been able to get him out of there, right? He showed levels that he's improved with his grappling. Absolutely punked Colby Covington. But you just don't see this killer instinct in Leon Edwards. You see him not be able to close the door on Nate Diaz after picking him apart, for 24 minutes until the final minute. He was picking him apart. You just see him have these laps and just not having that killer instinct, man, that I think he lacks. We see it at times with the good elbows. We saw that against Bilal. I call him backfoot Leon. He doesn't move forward enough anymore. He's okay sitting on the back foot trying to pick and poke at you. He's got a pretty style, the hip feints. He's a very, very high-level fighter, and he's world-class. I think Sean Brady's a serious issue for him. I said out of anyone that the UFC could give him, don't give him Brady, man. Don't give him Brady because I think Sean Brady is a bad matchup for him. He's a bad matchup for him. And of course, Leon Edwards could stop the takedowns, keep this fight on the feet, but I find it hard to believe if Sean Brady is taking down Gilbert Burns and significantly outstriking Gilbert Burns on the scorecard. If you blend that style together against Leon Edwards, who I know is more in his prime than Gilbert Burns and all these different things and was just the champion not that long ago, this isn't an older Kamaru Usman. I know Usman's good and he's got good wrestling, striking's improved. There is a serious submission threat here with Sean Brady that Leon Edwards is going to have to be concerned about. I think that Leon's going to be hesitant once again, sitting on the back foot, taking pictures, not opening up enough to where Brady will throw those pitter-patter shots with the boxing, push him up against the fence, take him down. I think if Leon gets taken down and flattened out, he is in a ton of trouble because of how strong Brady is. His technique is outstanding. The submission threat is there. He can't recklessly get back to his feet. I think Sean Brady wins this fight. I could see Leon maybe pulling it off, outpointing him. I could see Brady finding a submission. I'm going to go Sean Brady getting it done. I think it's probably likely by decision. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like, comment your thoughts down below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.